So, in the past, we've covered blaxploitation films with P.D. Wheatstraw and The Devil's Son-in-Law. We also reviewed a Nazi-sploitation movie, Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. And so now, I suppose it's time to talk about Ozploitation. See, when the original Mad Max movie came out, it was a huge success and a shot in the arm for Australian filmmakers. And a lot of people rushed in to follow suit, especially after Road Warrior came out and was an international success, even bigger than Mad Max. Road Warrior was known, except out in America, as Mad Max 2, but I'm American, and I kind of gotten used to thinking of it as Road Warrior. So what happened was there was just this huge upsurgence in post-apocalyptic cars and gangs gone wild films in Australia. It was people trying to cash in on that money, trying to ride on the Mad Max coattails, and that entire genre seems to have gotten, over time, just kind of bunched in together as Ozploitation. Any Ozploitation film is gonna pretty much have, in a world gone mad. After the apocalypse, gangs roaming the street, car battles, people wearing the weirdest springs in their hair, and half-painted faces, and what have you, fires everywhere. And that's how we came to today's movie. This is Dead End Drive-In. The opening crawl tells us how the world ends. It's a combination of societal issues and economic collapse, leading us to a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Well, gee, this is the most sedate and relaxed apocalypse I've ever seen. Hey, movie, if you really want to sell me on this nightmarish hellscape that you've created, this post-apocalyptic wasteland, perhaps you don't open the movie with your main character happily jogging along to upbeat music and taking time out to hit on some girls in suburbia. I'm just saying, that doesn't really sell post-apocalypse to me. Oh, here we go! Angry punks with a car! Now this is the Australia post-apocalypse I can recognize. They don't really do a whole lot here at the beginning of the film, but I'm sure they'll show up later. So, the jogging man is our main character, Jimmy, and we quickly learn a couple of facts about Jimmy. We learn that his brother is a tow truck driver who has a really sweet car, and that his mother is every stereotype of an Italian mother. The TV tells us about a full-scale war in Detroit between the National Guard and organized gangs of rioters, all caused by food shortages. I wonder if anybody over there is casually jogging through downtown. Jimmy has one dream in the world. He wants to be big and strong like his brother, so he can be a tow truck driver. Jimmy's got a job. He's kind of like a Meals on Wheels thing. He delivers food, I guess. We don't really see much of his job other than know that he has one. So you can really see him reaching for the stars with this tow truck driving gig. While tagging along with his brother Frank on the job, Jimmy gets to go to the scene of a car accident. This is where we find out that tow truck drivers are completely at war with a gang known as the Car Boys. So tow truck drivers get to the scene of an accident, get permission from the cops to start hauling away stuff before the car boys show up. Now, if the car boys show up, the cops don't feel a need to actually interfere with them in any way, shape, or form, even though they're the police and they have firearms. And the car boys have mostly melee weapons. The tow truck drivers have guns, though, and so there's some back and forth and some fighting over the wrecked cars. Now, I'm assuming the car boys need the cars to repair their cars. That's the most time I think cars has ever been used in a sentence. The tow truck drivers must get paid by what they haul in as opposed to by the hour? See, the movie doesn't tell me any of this. So I'm really having to make some stretches and guess here. Yeah, this apocalypse is so bad that when a news reporter shows up, all the evil gangers start dancing around in front of him making silly faces. None of them actually threaten him. Toe cutters, gang. These guys are not. The next night, Jimmy decides to steal his brother's sweet, sweet car and take his girlfriend out to see a drive-in movie. Finally, we get to see the Dead End Drive-In. The theater offers a pretty severe discount for unemployed people. So, despite having a job, Jimmy claims that he and his girlfriend are both unemployed. And honestly, if there's no verification process and it'll save you $6 on a movie ticket, wouldn't you do exactly the same thing? I'm looking at you, the people who held on to your student ID after you graduated college so you could still get student prices. You're telling me you wouldn't just tell the guy, yeah, I don't have a job, to save $6 on your movie ticket? While Jimmy and his girlfriend are having sex in the back of the car, somebody comes along and steals a couple of tires. I feel like I saw this on an episode of Cheers. Jimmy quickly throws on some clothes, grabs a weapon, and hunts down the people who stole his tires, only to find out that it's cops. So he goes back to his car. You were completely ready to just, like, start beating down some people for stealing your tires. When you saw it was the cops, couldn't you have been like, excuse me, officer? Those are my tires? Could I please have my tires back? Please? But he didn't say anything. He doesn't even try. We've seen the cops before. They were ineffectual and not scary at all. As soon as fighting went down, the cops just went, okay, you kids have fun, and they left. So I don't really have any reason to believe that these are post-apocalyptic Nazi cops. And yet, they have his tires, and he just goes back and, hey, damnedest thing, cops took our tires. Huh. Jimmy's girlfriend is completely uninterested in this problem. Honey, how do you plan to get home? You should care at least a little bit about getting tires. He then reports the theft to the manager, who offers him a blanket and tells him to come back in the morning. Jimmy keeps insisting, I know who took the tires, but he never actually says the cops, because every time he says, I know who took them, the manager says, come back in the morning. The next morning, Jimmy realizes he is far from the only person still at the drive-in. Something isn't right here. Jimmy tells the manager not to contact his brother, because obviously he doesn't want to get in trouble for swiping the car, and especially for swiping the car and losing 2 tires. And before Jimmy can even mention again, the cops took my tires, the manager hands him meal vouchers. This is not good. Jimmy mentions calling a cab, and he's told no cabs are allowed. He says he's going to walk, and he's told that it's a special kind of road, and if he's caught walking on it, it's 3 months in jail minimum. And Jimmy's a little slow on the uptake, and this movie's a little slow. In fact, the movie never outright reveals this to us. We have to glean it from clues. But clearly, Jimmy and the other 200 people in the drive-in are in a concentration camp for the unemployed and undesirable. Because in this post-apocalyptic scenario, there's just a huge increase in unemployed people, and the government has decided that it's going to use this chain of drive-in theaters as a way to, like, trap the unemployed and get them out of society. And then it'll just feed them there. It's almost a voluntary trap, because here, it's only going to catch people who don't have a job, but still have a working car, and want to spend what little money they have from not working to go see movies. Because while there's a discount for being unemployed, it's still not free. Okay? So you're getting a very small population caught in your little trap. And you can't tell me, out of the 200 people there, Jimmy is the only person who lied about not having a job in order to save money on the ticket. And by the way, the rest of this movie, Jimmy never mentions to anybody that he's got a job. Never comes up. He never says it like, I gotta get to work. Which would spring him from this place, I would imagine, since they're only trying to catch the unemployed. Yeah, he'd have to do a whoopsie and give the extra $6 for the movie tickets. But it sounds worth it to me. I mean, it's a neat concept, the idea of a concentration camp in a drive-in movie theater. I guess it's kind of cool, but this methodology doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Jimmy decides to spend some time tinkering on the motor of the car rather than looking for wheels. He points out that he can only take Chevy wheels, because otherwise his brother will kill him. You realize you've been gone all night long and into the next day. By now your brother knows you took the car. He's gonna be pissed anyway. Perhaps you should focus on finding any wheels and just getting out of there. While Jimmy decides to keep working on his fully functional car engine, his girlfriend shows off her new post-apocalyptic hairdo, courtesy of the ladies in the ladies' room. Not once in this entire first day do we see Jimmy actually attempting to get tires, apart from going, hey manager, when am I going to get any parts? And being told he's not. He keeps talking about how he needs tires, but instead he's tinkering with the engine of a car that worked the night before and seems to still be working. But he keeps talking about, I gotta balance the airflow, gotta balance the airflow. How finicky must this car be if you gotta work on it after driving it 5 miles? Everywhere he goes, Jimmy is confronted with people who have zero interest in escaping. You're telling me that out of the 200 people in there, none of them have friends or families or a life they want to get back to, and again, none of them actually had jobs despite what they said? You're telling me Jimmy is the only one out of 200 people that doesn't want to live in a concentration camp? Admittedly, the idea of living for free in a drive-in movie theater isn't the worst thing I've ever heard of, but even after a couple weeks, I'd get bored. Even if they kept rotating out the movies. I could only live in a car and eat drive-in diner food or drive-in movie theater food for so long before I got really bored. Jimmy's girlfriend is very upset that Jimmy wants to escape. She's so upset, in fact, that she decides he doesn't want her anymore. Clearly, he doesn't want to have sex with her if he'd like to escape the drive-in someday. That makes perfect sense. You don't want to stay here forever? Why do you find my body disgusting? She gets adopted into this tribe fast. She's been in the drive-in for 1 day, and that's it. She's locked in. She is never going to change her mind. This is where she wants to be forever. Jimmy gets in a fight with a couple of guys the next day because they start teasing him about how he's impotent because he can't have sex with his girlfriend. Holy crap, man! I didn't bang her last night. 1 night. And now word is all over town. These 200 people all know that I'm not giving it to my girl. And by the way, at one point he did attempt to, but she was already disgusted by him wanting to escape. When he gets back to the car, he finds it's been decorated with more jibes about his manhood and inability to have sex with his girlfriend. 1 night. So now that the car is obviously no longer in pristine condition, you can take any tires you find and just drive it back to your brother, right? Because the car's already jacked up. But no, he still insists on only getting Chevy wheels. Dude, your brother's gonna kill you regardless. And you've been gone for like 2 days. There's no covering this up anymore.
What are you doing?
Balancing the flow.
Balancing the flow? Right. Terrific.
How damn delicate is this car that you have to work on the motor each and every day? The damn thing drove when you got here, you parked, and you haven't moved it since. Why do you have to keep fine-tuning the engine? And even better, because he spends so much time fine-tuning the engine, it runs out of gas. Golly gee, who could have imagined that running the car's engine all day for no reason could make you run out of gas? Now you gotta find tires and gas. You're awesome at this. When a shipment of new cars and foreigners comes in, Jimmy finally finds the wheels of his dream. I guess the government finally realized that this method of hoping people went to a drive-in movie theater without jobs wasn't working, and now they're forcibly busing unemployed people into the drive-in. I have to assume this because the movie never tells me. Why are they bringing in the cars, though? We saw people fighting over that. There were gangs fighting over cars. They are a valuable, precious commodity, and now they're just being dropped off at the drive-in. The only thing I can think is it's so that the foreigners that they're dropping off, and I keep saying foreigners, it's because the movie makes a big deal about them later. It's Asians in Australia. I don't know why it's such a big deal, but it is in the movie. I'm going to guess it's so that they have homes, they have a place to sleep, I have to guess this because the movie doesn't tell me anything. Tires in hand, and with a plan to steal some gas from a police car, Jimmy is ready to make his escape. But his girlfriend refuses to go. She's finally found a place where she feels like she belongs, a place she can call home. A drive-in movie theater populated by 200 punks and thugs that escaped from a Road Warrior movie. Although it's not all roses and peaches, she is pretty upset that they're allowing a lot of Asian people around the white people. Wow, Jimmy, you got yourself a good one there. Apparently, though, instead of, leaving as quickly as he could, Jimmy wanted to wait until after breakfast the next morning and take his girlfriend with him. The racist chick who doesn't want to leave. Sadly, in the brief time it took him to go grab breakfast, somebody stole his engine. That seems like something that would take a lot of time to remove. It would be heavy. Typically, whenever I've seen an engine removed in like a shop, there's cranes and stuff because it's the heaviest part of the car. But apparently, in the time it took him to go grab a cheeseburger for breakfast, a bunch of people came in and went, whoop, got the engine, and skedaddled. We never find where the engine went. Convinced that the manager was behind his engine theft, he actually jumps on the guy's computer and finds out that all of the Starlight drive-ins in Australia are actually concentration camps for unemployed people. Yeah, Jimmy, we figured that out like an hour ago. Because the movie wouldn't tell us, so we made some assumptions. Maybe this would be a good opportunity for you to tell the manager that you have a job. I mean, I'm not sure about the laws in post-apocalyptic Australia, but it seems to me that if you have a concentration camp made for housing unemployed people to get them out of society, and you accidentally house an employed person, perhaps you'd let him go. I mean, it's worth at least a try. You want out of there so bad, you've looked at everything. You've tried everything. We know you have a job. There was a little scene about him having a job earlier. I didn't include it. It was boring. It didn't mean anything. And clearly, the movie's forgotten about it because he never, ever even tries to be like, excuse me, I have a job I'd like to get back to before I'm fired and become one of these unemployed people that you're keeping here. The charismatic leader of the Nazi whites-only group in the drive-in starts rousing the populace against all the Asians that were brought in. Now, I'm not going to let you hear any of the actual dialogue because it is shockingly racist. Like, wow! Uncomfortable. I'm not Asian and it's uncomfortable for me to watch. It's wildly racist. The point is, we're getting very close to a full-blown race riot here, although I'm not sure you can call it a race riot when all it really is a bunch of white people attacking a bunch of Asians who haven't done anything. Maybe that's what a race riot is. I tend to think of a riot as two sides fighting each other, but that's fine. Plus, the plot never goes anywhere. The race riot never happens. The movie ends before it actually, ignites. I wonder if the filmmakers were just looking for an excuse to use some incredibly racist speech. That night, when tow truck drivers bring in more cars, Jimmy actually steals one of the tow trucks in an attempt to escape. Once the police recognize him, we get an actual full-on exploitation action sequence, which this film is actually pretty light on. There is very little action in this movie. There's a good 2 sequences. Mostly, it's just slow, dramatic look at the punks in the drive-in. The escape attempt doesn't end well, but Jimmy isn't giving up. He's getting out of here tonight. Jimmy again begs his girlfriend to come with him, and she says no, and that if he really loved her, he'd be happy living in the drive-in forever. Luckily, he doesn't love his racist, shiftless girlfriend, so Jimmy is gonna leave her behind. When an attempt to hold the manager hostage goes slightly awry, Jimmy is able to steal a police truck and escape from the concentration camp in the coolest possible way. is how you escape a drive-in theater concentration camp. It's also how you escape a movie, because we're done! Credits roll and we're free! The premise of this movie is so bizarre. The idea of an almost voluntary concentration camp seems pretty stupid just on the face of it. And how would you keep that a secret? You can't tell me that everybody who went there stole their car to go in, right? 200 people, at least some of them must have been, hey mom, go into the drive-in, see you later. Did nobody ask any questions or any follow-up when they never saw their loved ones again? And wouldn't word get around town like, hey, by the way, for the last month, everybody that's gone to see a movie at the drive-in never returned. Maybe you should make other plans for the evening. Nobody asked questions. No, there's never anybody at the gate going, hey, my son was here, what happened? It's also pretty tame as apocalypses go. Like, the drive-in theater is full of thugs and punks who posture and get angry, and there's one fight sequence. But nobody's killing each other for food. They're all just dressed weird and hanging out. There's only one manager, and he doesn't walk around armed. And everybody hates him, and they make fun of anybody who talks to him, but nobody does anything to him. You know, he's the enemy. None of you want to leave. You've made it very clear. All 199 of you want to stay right here. But he's the bad guy because he runs the place. But he's not so bad that we're going to do anything about it, because then we might accidentally get out of here, which we don't want to do. The whole premise and execution is just bizarre. All that said, it's actually kind of a fun little film. I mean, it's silly and absurd, and all the points that I've made are very, very true. The film doesn't like to give you information. You have to make a lot of assumptions. And there's not a lot going on. A good chunk of the movie is just life at this drive-in. But it's very, I'm going to say colorful, except it's mostly brown. But the characters are colorful. The concept is thought out. It's not a good concept, but man, they make the most of what they've got. It's actually a fun little movie to watch. And maybe that's just because of my weakness for Ozploitation and post-apocalyptic films. But I kind of like it. Stupid as it is. Anyway. Guess I'll see you guys next time. Don't go to any drive-in movie theaters.
Hi, I'm Luke Bryan, 2-time CMA Entertainer of the Year. If I ever learn how to read, I'm going to read The Great Platypus Caper by Jeff Hillary, because I believe in supporting fine literature. I'm Luke Bryan. Hi.